I'm going to talk about the government support available so far, a little bit about the schemes themselves, how the eligibility works and how to apply for them. At the moment, the main ones that are available is the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. We've got the newly announced bounce back loans that we'll talk a little bit about, but there's still quite a lot of limited information on that one. More news will follow. We've got the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, the Job Retention Scheme, and the Universal Credit. Talk about some HMRC jargon. Taxable grants, just for clarity, it's income received that does not need to be repaid, but will be subject to income tax and national insurance at some point further down the line. And then trading profits is just your income minus your allowable business expenses. So if I start on the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, abbreviated as SEISS, this is a taxable grant which is designed to support those are sole traders and partnerships. So limited company owners are not included in this taxable grant. And it's for those that have been affected by and impacted by COVID-19. And effectively, what government will pay out to you is up to a maximum of £2,500 a month, or up to 80% of your trading profits. As I mentioned earlier, trading profits is your income less your allowable expenses. This is initially being paid out for a 3-month period. We've just seen the job retention scheme extend by 1 month, so we expect this to also be extended. So no confirmation as yet, but we expect that to sort of like fall in line with the job retention scheme. SEISS, who is it for? So as I mentioned, a sole trader or a member of a partnership. So some of the key things here, you must have submitted a self-assessment tax return for the 18-19 tax year. They extended the deadline, but this has now passed. So if you haven't completed that return, which the deadline was 31st of January, you will not be eligible for this scheme. You must have been self-employed during the previous tax year, 1920, so still been trading, and then affected by the coronavirus. So you've lost income due to coronavirus, you're unable to work or whatever it may be. And the basis of this is also that you intend to continue your self-employed work once this passes. If we talk about eligibilities, there's a lot of different sort of scenarios. There's many variables to you guys, like self-employed and how you work, but essentially the government are giving us these factors. So your trading and profits must be less than £50,000 per year, and your self-employment needs to account for more than 50% of your total income, but either the 18-19 tax year, so if you only traded for like that 1 year, for example, or the average of the 16-17, 17-18 and 18-19 tax year. If you're not sure where to get these figures or calculate it, if you're looking for profit figures, if you've got an accountant, check with them, they'll have those figures to hand. If you've filed the returns yourself, you'll be able to log into your HMRC account and look at previous returns, that you'll have the profit figure there. Just whip together a small example calculation. There are many different variables of this, but HMRC are working out the average trading profit. They add the profit together for the 3 tax years, and then they'll divide that by 3, and you'll get your average trading profit. As you can see here, we got profit for 2 years of 60,000, then we got £30,000 loss in the 18-19 tax year, so we've got 90,000 over that, and then divide it by 3 and we get 30,000, so that'd be your average trading profit. So with the SEISS, how do you apply? So you don't actually have to do anything. HMRC will have all the data already. They'll have the tax returns that you've submitted. They've informed us that they will be reaching out mid-May. There are some few scam messages going around. HMRC's primarily main ports of contact will be via the government gateway or like an actual letter from HMRC themselves. HMRC don't really text you, just be aware of that. So I'm going to move on to like the next available support. So this has just recently been announced on Monday. So the information the government have released is quite limited at the moment, but what we have here is a bounce back loan. And I think this is derived from some of the challenges people have been faced with the loan scheme that I'll talk about in a minute, but it's designed to support those smaller businesses that are struggling to obtain the finance from those other loan schemes. So as you can see, it's designed to help small and medium businesses borrow between £2,000 and £50,000. When it says small and medium businesses, at the moment, we're looking at sole traders, partnerships, limited companies as well, I believe, but we're still waiting for more detail. The government will guarantee 100% of the loan. There will be 0 fees or interest to pay up the first 12 months. The loan term will be up to 6 years. No repayments during the first 12 months, and the government will work with the lenders to agree a low rate of interest. It has to be a business that's based in the UK, affected by coronavirus, and was not an undertaking in difficulty on the 31st of December 2019. You cannot apply for this loan if you're already be in receipt of another loan, such as the coronavirus business loan, which I'll talk about shortly. If you are already under that loan, you can transfer it to this new bounce back loan scheme, and you'll have to arrange this with the lender that you've already got an agreement with and a loan for. Touched on this coronavirus business interruption loan scheme in my previous slides, but I'll go through this in a little bit more depth now. This is a loan that's designed to support businesses with an annual turnover of up to 45 million. It's given out via accredited lenders that can offer the scheme, including some of the major banks like your HSBCs, your big banks, and then there's some smaller independent lenders as well. And what you can access is loans, overdraft, invoice finance, asset finance of up to 5 million for 6 years. The government provides lenders with the guarantee of 80% of each loan. Again, interest free for 12 months. The challenges that have been faced with this loan, and I think why they've released these bounce back loans, is some of the timeframes actually obtaining these loans. It can take a couple of weeks to get through, whereas the bounce back loan idea is for the smaller businesses, and they're hoping that it's a simple form that you just complete and obtain the finance in 24 to 48 hours. This CBILS application is a little bit longer and designed, as you can see, like with annual turnover up to 45 million. There's varying different levels of businesses, so I think that's why they brought in the bounce back loans, just to help those smaller businesses obtain the finance quicker. So how can you apply for this loan? The CBILS is, as I mentioned, given by 40 different lenders. At the moment, what you have to do is actually approach the lenders directly, apply on their website. Some of them have got application processes on the website now, or they ask you to call their number directly and speak to them. Some of the problems that we've encountered is that the mainstream banks are only accepting their existing customers, and the independent lenders, there's varying ones that are quite obscure you probably haven't heard of before, but we sort of have a solution to that, which I'll just talk about a little bit later. The lender has the power to decide whether to offer you the finance or not. Lenders will not be able to take any personal guarantees of any forms for the loans below £250,000, and if you get rejected by a lender, you can still approach any of the other 40 lenders. The next part of this is the job retention scheme. This scheme is more targeted at those that are limited companies, maybe one director, a couple of employees. You'll be able to apply for the job retention scheme, and I'll talk through that now. So what is it? It's designed to help businesses having to make redundancies or layoffs. Through the scheme, you'll be able to furlough yourself as a sole director of your own limited company. So this is equal to 80% of your PAYE salary and a maximum of up to £2,500 a month, and it'll be paid out for 4 months, effectively from March to June. Again, could be extended. It depends how this coronavirus continues. What's key here is probably what a lot of limited companies, personal service companies, sole director companies are facing, is that it does not include your dividends, which makes up a lot of your income. So as I mentioned, the job is at 4. So you must have these in place if you haven't applied already. So you must have a payroll scheme on or before the 19th of March 2020. You must have a government gateway account or enrolled for PAYE online and a UK bank account. So when we're talking about the enrolment PAYE online, that's mainly because the whole portal is on the Gov website to actually make the claim. How do you apply? So I touched on this. So it's on the Gov UK website. So you have to have a government gateway ID and password and enroll for PAYE online. If you have an accountant, they'll be able to do this for you. They are your agent and act on your behalf with HMRC for payroll. Speak with them because they'll be able to actually do these claims for you. And what's important is these claims, once the claim's been made, you'll get paid within 6 working days. So what I'm going to talk now is universal credit. So you may have explored all these options so far. You may not be eligible for certain things, and then sort of the fallback is universal credit. There's so many variables with universal credit. I'll give you some of the main things and main takeaways from this, but what we usually say is speak to Citizens Advice or ring the universal credit helpline themselves, because each case is very different. Essentially, universal credit is a monthly payment to help with your living costs. You'll be able to get universal credit if you're on low income, out of work, under state pension age, if you and your partner have less than £16,000 in savings between you and you live in the UK. When we're talking about the savings and your partner, so you don't necessarily have to be married, it'll be someone that you're living with. When you make the application, they'll still ask you about your partner's income, even though it might be you doing the sole whole application, they will factor in the household income. So just bear that in mind. So if, say, you don't have any savings, you think you may be eligible, but your partner has over £16,000 in savings, you may not be successful in your application with universal credit because they will expect you and your partner to use those savings instead. So how much can you receive from universal credit? It works in like a few different ways. There's many variables that affect how much you get. Firstly, we have like the standard monthly amount, and as you can see here, if you are single and under 25, £342.72, single and over 25, 409, and then in a couple, if you're applying jointly, those figures there, 488 and 594 pounds. So that will be the standard allowance, but then there are extra amounts that you may be eligible for. So if you have children, you get an additional payment on top of these figures. If you have a disability, health condition that prevents you from working or limiting you from work, or if you need help with paying rent, basically universal credit will take all of these things, factor them in, and give you a payable amount. But these are the basic, this is like the bottom line figures that you'll be able to claim if you're eligible, and then the variables above there will give you an increased amount monthly if you hit the right criteria. What I was going to say about universal credit as well, so it's a real simple online application. If you go on gov.uk/universal credit, you can actually just apply straight away. So it's a relatively straightforward online form. So it's a really nice, easy process to actually apply. And then I was just going to talk a little bit more about cash flows. Those are the options to you, those 5 different options, whether you're eligible for certain ones or not. And then there's a few things that the government have done in terms of cash flow to ease the cash flow situation you may be struggling with. Consider making use of rental and mortgage holidays. What we've encountered is customers are sort of like delaying their mortgage payments by up to 3 months. Each provider is different, but quite a lot of them have just got a really simple online information fill in, submit, and you've got your payment holidays. It's worth noting that like with the mortgage, the interest will still accrue on the mortgage, I believe, but just check with your provider. If you're submitting self-assessment tax returns and make payments on accounts of payments on advance towards the following tax year, there was a payment due 31st of July. This year, you won't be required to make that until January 2021 now, so they've deferred that, so you won't be paying in advance for your self-assessment. In addition to that, if you're VAT registered, defer on making the payments of VAT. What's key with this is that you'll still have to submit the VAT return to HMRC, but you won't actually have to make the payment between, so I say now, it's between the 1st of March and the 30th of June. If you've had a VAT period or a VAT end in that period, you don't have to make the payment until the 31st of March 2021. It's important to just remember that you do need to make the submission. It's entirely up to you. If you want to pay it still, you still can make the payment. What's also important is if you are on a direct debit scheme for VAT, you'll need to cancel that yourself. Otherwise, HMRC will still take that payment. So just be aware of that if you're affected by the VAT payments. As you can see, there's many things that you can do. You can do 3-month payment freezes with loans and credit cards. I believe that's also extended to sort of like hire purchases, but definitely speak with your providers because the support is actually really good at the moment and the understanding levels are really good.
So
Feel free
I'm just going to have a quick run through of the questions. The first, I set up as a sole trader in November 2019. Am I eligible for the support?
Fortunately, if you're talking about the SEISS, this is where you won't be eligible for that support, that taxable grant we were talking about right at the start. So what you'd have to do is either look at these loans, this bounce back loan that's being set up, they could be viable options to you. Alternatively, you'd have to look at universal credit. So if you're not comfortable with taking a loan in this sort of current climate, then it would have to be a universal credit claim.
Next one, can a sole trader that has started trading in the last financial year apply for the bounce back loan scheme?
So at the moment, we don't have that detail. HMRC's website, they've given us like a one-pager with bounce back loans. So it's really difficult to say. It looks like if you have been affected by COVID, then you should be able to apply for this loan. There is no specifications at the moment to do with when you started trading or not. It's just if you've been affected. I'm sorry, I can't give you like a straight yes or no, but it will be probably in the next couple of days. We'll find out more information on that one.
So another one about the bounce back loan. If a bounce back loan was approved and paid, would that prohibit me from claiming universal credit?
I don't believe so. It's difficult with this bounce back loans. I know you've got loads of questions around this, and it's really hard to say. If you've seen the government webpage, we've got that one-pager document, so there's just not the detail at the moment. We see a lot of talk around Twitter and news articles, but we only go off the government website just because there's a lot of hearsay. Martin Lewis is also a good person to follow because he speaks quite closely with the Treasury. But at the moment, the bounce back loan information is really limited. I think if you're in like financial difficulty and waiting for more info about the bounce back loan, still apply for your universal credit and then cancel that application if there is any implication.
Next question, this time from Ivan. Is the universal credit max amount likely to be comparable to the 80% trading profit amount available through SEISS?
Probably not comparable, if I'm honest. I think there's certain different thresholds. So like if you have children, how many children, that really affects the amount. Depends on your trading profits as well, but I wouldn't say it gets anywhere near the 2,500 limit. So that's probably why you'll see a lot of lobbying for the self-employed, because the universal credit system just doesn't support enough. But nonetheless, if that's all that's available to you, it's probably still worth applying in these times.
If most of your income is from being employed and you do some self-employed work on the side, are you eligible for SEIS? The answer to that is, to be eligible for SEIS, you must have at least 50% of your income coming from your self-employed work. So it depends on the split. The other question is about universal credit. What does partner mean? Does that mean if you have a flatmate, would their income or savings be taken into consideration? I believe the answer to that is no, that it's to do with people being in a relationship, so they may be partners together but not yet married.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. It's not if it's a flatmate, that wouldn't be deemed as a partner.
We want to talk through financial crime.
I want to talk about fraud because you've probably heard and read everywhere that fraud is on the rise, that there have been more scams going around due to the coronavirus pandemic. I think it's a good idea to just let you know a little bit why this is happening and what types of scams and fraud we are seeing. Just to give you some numbers around fraud, if you do a quick Google search looking for fraud and COVID or coronavirus, you'll get 120 million results. And as per Action Fraud, there's been over 500 coronavirus-related scams reported to them and over 2,000 phishing attempts. That's when scammers try to steal your details through like fraudulent links. This means that 3 to 5% of all fraud reported in the past week are coronavirus-related, which is a lot and adds up to £2.3 million in losses from victims. And why is this important? Because most of these frauds happen or start happening online. Cybercrime is a major enabler of fraud. Around 54% of fraud happens partially or fully online. And how has fraud and crime changed with the coronavirus pandemic? As you know, most of the world, or half of it at least, is in lockdown. Governments have had to take unprecedented measures to fight the pandemic, and these measures have had a significant impact in people's lives, but also in criminal operations. And these measures have prompted them to make some changes in how they operate and how they engage in their criminal activities. Some of these factors that have prompted these changes are the high demand for certain goods, such as personal protective equipment and pharmaceutical products, the decreased mobility and flow of people across the globe, the fact that citizens are remaining at home and are relying on digital solutions to do pretty much everything, working, shopping, etc. Also, criminals are really exploiting new vulnerabilities in people, because obviously a lot of people are feeling really anxious about the whole situation. So criminals know this and they have no problems in exploiting this. And finally, there's obviously a decreased supply for certain illicit goods that usually criminal organizations rely on for their business, such as drugs and arms. These are the main reasons why scams have changed. And to understand this a little bit better and to give you a specific example, I want to talk about the Ndrangheta, which is a mafia-like criminal organization from the south of Italy, originally from Calabria, but is now considered the biggest crime organization in the world, and they operate all over the world. Just to give you a figure for you to understand how big they are, in 2006, it was estimated that 80% of all the cocaine you can find in Europe had entered Europe from a harbor in the south of Italy that is controlled by this criminal organization. Obviously, their activities with the mobility restrictions and the fact that there's more surveillance from the police and from the government around, have really impacted their operations. And so now they are looking into doing business in some other ways. One of these ways is by winning contracts supplying healthcare equipment through companies that they already control. As I said, this organization is huge. So they control companies, they control politicians, they control entire towns, especially in the south of Italy. And also another one that they've been doing is a loan sharking to small business owners who are struggling. Sometimes the new measures plays against them. And an anecdote that had happened to this criminal organization is that one day a few weeks ago, a guy was stopped by the police just to check why this person was on the streets, because of course in Italy there's been lockdown for a long time. And this person said that he was just delivering groceries for a person who couldn't get the groceries themselves. And when he was asked where he was delivering the groceries, he gave the address of an inhabited house. So the police went outside this house and started surveilling this house just to see if this person had told the truth. And at some point they realized that there was some cigarette smoke coming out of a window. And when they got inside the house, they found one of the organization's leaders hiding in there. He was detained. So now I want to go through a few of the fraud typologies that are coronavirus related. We've seen some of these in the past, not related to coronavirus, but obviously fraudsters are creative and they know how to adapt to new situations. As I said, there's been over 500 frauds reported. So these are not all of the types of fraud you may find, but these are some of the main ones. Starting with purchase scams, this is when fraudulent sellers offer products online, things like protective masks, hand sanitizer, test kits, and then once you pay for them, they never deliver them to you. Same with fake cures or vaccines for coronavirus, which unfortunately we don't have one yet. So if you ever receive an email or you see an ad saying that you can buy a vaccine for coronavirus, that's clearly a scam. Then we have fake donation campaigns where criminals will pretend to be from known organizations or maybe unknown charities and ask for funds. Always check in if the organization is real. There's a website check for charities, like it's the charity register. You can check if a charity is legit and it's registered there. Then fraudsters really like to impersonate other people. They will impersonate HMRC, they will impersonate the government. For people who are employed, they will impersonate a company CEO and ask for urgent payments to be made. So that's a very common one. Then we've also seen fake job opportunities for fake key worker positions where the victims will be asked to make a payment for vetting or background check if they want to get the job. Obviously, it doesn't exist. And then a type of fraud that we've seen a lot are the fake tax refunds that come from HMRC. HMRC will never text you. They usually send a letter through the post. Beware of anything that just comes out of the blue being like, oh, you're owed some money, because it will probably be a scam. And finally, there's been some fake tech going around where the fraudsters from the victims to pay some money as a fine for breaking the lockdown. And we'll see some of these now, actually. These are some scams that I found and that have been going around. The first one is a very common one where the criminals pretend to be from HMRC and they're like, oh, you're owed some money. Just click here and we'll get it to you. And this one is quite evident that it's a scam. You can see that like the capitals and the spaces here are all like weird. This is weird as well. The link is pretty bad. So this is kind of like a bad fraud because it's quite evident that this is not real. The second one, though, it's a much better fraud, let's say, because what they've done is they send you a first text where they've basically copied a text that everyone received from Gov.uk. And so the fraudulent message, which is the second one, kind of feels more real. Also, there's no typos in here. So they are telling you, oh yeah, you have to pay this fine because you left your house in 3 occasions, which is against lockdown, which is not even true. So they prompt you to pay some money. And obviously this is not real. There's no fine going around like this in your text messages. So be really careful if you receive some of these texts. This other one is an email one and is about grants from the government. Again, they ask you to click on these links that will probably ask you to provide your sensitive and personal information. So just don't do that. And finally, this one one is a bit of a different one. In here, the fraudsters are pretending to be from the World Health Organization, and they are asking for donations, and they want you to donate money to them using Bitcoin. And obviously, this is a fake one as well. If you see the e-domain in the email, this is not the real one. So these are kind of the things to look out for. So what are the red flags that you should look out for to spot a scam? So first of all, look out for or be careful if you receive unexpected offers. So if something comes out of the blue, like good offers for products, services, deals, if something is too good to be true or sounds too good to be true, it's probably because it is not true. So be really careful with this. Same with companies or organizations you've never heard of. Always research everything. If you're buying something, try to use official marketplaces such as Amazon or eBay, because they have more guarantees and they will return your money if something goes wrong. Try not to buy from unknown sellers or to click on sponsored links and things like this, because that's something that fraudsters really like to use. Another really, really important thing is never, ever, ever share your sensitive information with anyone. No legit company or organization is going to ask you for your PIN, for your password, for your security number at the back of your card. And same with maybe not so sensitive information. If the request feels odd, it's probably because it is. So things like, oh, re-enter your address, or give us the information about your investment or your pension. These things, maybe they won't try to get money from you straight away, but they may use that information to perform some sort of fraud in the future, having that information with them. Another thing to look out for that we've seen in the examples that I showed you earlier are messages that just don't look right, that have typos, blurry logos, that the email addresses are strange, that the links are strange. So yeah, this is like a very evident one, and some bad frauds are quite evident because they don't really take care of these things. But beware, because some fraudsters, as we've seen as well, are quite good and really difficult to catch it. Also, be careful if someone's trying to pressure you into making a payment. Obviously, criminals try to not leave you time to think, and they will be saying like, oh, the offer is going to finish soon, or if you don't pay this now, you're going to have very bad consequences. Or if they are impersonating your CEO, they're going to be like, oh, we need this now, make this payment now. Never do something in a rush. That's my advice. Just always think about it twice, do your research. There's always time for these things. So if someone's really rushing you or pressuring you to make a payment or to do something, to take an action, just don't trust it. Same with unexpected calls or text messages. Again, HMRC never sends text. Most banks won't call you unexpectedly. They will usually arrange the call with you. These things are usually quite suspicious and could be a red flag. And finally, when you're buying something online, if the merchant is only accepting bank transfers, this could be a red flag, because recalling funds that you've paid through bank transfer is more difficult than recalling something that you've paid using your card. So in summary, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. So again, be really, really careful with super good offers, money that comes out of the blue, etc. If you receive an email or a text saying that you have to enter some details or something like this, don't click. If you think that it could be genuine and you want to have a further look into it, don't click on the link that you have on the text or the email. It's better if you go on the official website and just look up the thing that you are meant to be doing, because if you click that link and it's a fraudulent link, obviously you're going to end up giving your details to a criminal. Again, I can stress this enough. Never share your sensitive information with anyone. Beware of sudden emails telling you that you have to re-enter your password and that you have to give your PIN. Those are usually scams. And finally, take your time. Don't feel rushed. Ask around, double check everything, look things up on the internet. If something is a scam, it's very likely that someone has already talked about it online, so you'll find it online. And if you've either been victim of the scam yourself, or if you just think that something you've received is fraud, you can report it to Action Fraud by going onto their website or calling them. Or if it's an email scam, you can report it to the government using this email address.